everyone, and welcome back, or I suppose it's still good morning. This is the StagsCon 2026 Seneschal meeting room. We are moving a little ahead of schedule at this point in time, so just so that we are all on the same page, we are starting the Kingdom Law and Corpora meeting, the review of Kingdom Law. This will start at approximately 10:15, and we're scheduled to run until 11:45, followed by our lunch break. So we will be working through that. Please remember this is an official SCA meeting, so all rule or official SCA event, so all rules such as um, proper etiquette, no bullying, all of those are in effect, and these classes are being recorded
All
to be
right,
posted
it's
on social.
10:15. Thank you for joining us, Aishi. She's going to be, as one of the authors of the new Kingdom Law, she's going to be um, presenting it, and that way she can give us more insight as to the intent of the law. Um, do we want to do introductions again, real quick? I'm Sir Christine. I'm Kingdom Seneschal temporarily till next month when Mr. Saldith takes over. Mr. Saldith, do you want to introduce yourself? And then Mr. Saishi.
This is Mistress Aldith, moderately known Deb Hammonds, and yep, sometime next month I get to have all the tea, according to Aisha. It goes.
Hi there, my name is Master Aisha. I am mundanely known as Kate Tingley. I served as Outlands Kingdom Seneschal from, I can't remember, 2023, 24, 25, part of 26. I don't know. Anyway.
All right, so take it away.
Alrighty. So I wanted to start off with, how do you find Kingdom Law? And the place to go is to the Office of the Seneschal page. And if we scroll down to the bottom, you're going to see all of the current deputies. And then in the Documents and Forms section, you're going to see Outlands Kingdom Law. And so this should take us, in theory, to the most current update that was signed by Emrys and Arya and Simon. Okay. So one of the differences with Kingdom Law, you'll see right off the bat with our content page, one, we've got the preamble, and then we've got a series of appendix. And one of the things was, well, why are we putting things in the appendix form? And, you know, there are some things that don't quite belong in law, but are things that we need, you know, that people want to know about, right? And that we want to highlight, and we want to make sure that the process is more clear, okay? And so, for example, Appendix 6, Royal Household and Ceremonial Champions, that used to be under rights, duties, and privileges of the crown. But we know that the royal household aren't officers, they're not warranted, and so they really don't belong in the body of work that is the law, okay? So the purpose of the preamble was pretty much just to kind of, you know, why do we have these laws? What are they here for? And what are our limitations and powers that are given to us as a kingdom from the SCA? And so, you know, here begins the laws of the Kingdom of the Outlands, made and enacted under the guidance and protection of the Crown. Let it be known that these laws are established to preserve the peace, promote honor and courtesy, and uphold the ideals of the Society for Creative Anachronism, Inc., SCA, within this realm. Kingdom law shall be described within this document. Outlands law is subordinate to the authority of federal, state, and tribal law, the board of directors, and the governing documents of the SCA. By these words are the duties of the crown, the officers, and the populace made clear that all may act in accordance with right governance and the traditions of the Outlands. Okay? Does anyone have any questions about the preamble? All right. So, Kingdom Law, I have modified the Kingdom Law for this kingdom under every crown I served. It could be done on a complete whim of the crown, without so let me back up a little bit. The Outlands must pay deference to the society and the society's rules, right? And so typically the crown will come to the seneschal and say, hey, I want to change kingdom law. And you say, sure, cool, that's awesome. What do you want to change it to? And they'll spell out what they want to change, and then they will send it to the seneschal will send it to the society seneschal, who will give the yes or no. And sometimes they give a complete red line of absolutely not, this cannot be done. And sometimes they say, sure, not a problem, fine. Once that is changed, it has to be published those changes need to be published in the OH. And those changes need to be read into court. And the document needs to be wet copy signed in order to go into effect. There have been some crowns who want to change just one or two things. Some crowns want to change a lot of the law. But at any time, society has the ability to say, absolutely not, you cannot do this. Oh, and one more thing, which is kind of where this big law rewrite occurred, because our laws, the fundamental content of our laws hadn't been updated in quite a bit. We had pared a lot of things down under Mortigan and Umani, but there are still some things that were not aligned with society that we had to come into compliance with. So that kind of triggered this, the document as you see here. So the big difference in this is that we've spelled out the timeline of how to change kingdom law. So the crown tells the seneschal they want to change it. Within 14 days of the receipt of the proposed changes, the kingdom seneschal either acknowledges the propriety of the changes, or details any potential conflicts in writing to the crown and the kingdom greater officers. Prior to this, the kingdom greater officers did not have to have a heads up that things would be changing. So, for example, under Bardolph and Sabiha, they wanted to get rid of the heraldry requirement to participate in crown tourney. And, the herald didn't have to get, the White Stag didn't have to get notified of this. And we thought it was really important that as we, as officers, work together in partnership with the crown, that we make sure that everyone is aware of the changes and has the opportunity to give their opinion. And Simon and Arya took this a step further, in that kingdom law must be published in the Outlandish Herald and be open for public commentary for a minimum of 14 days from the date of publication. And then proposed changes may not be sent for publication until steps 2.1 through 2.5 have been completed again. So the reason why why we felt very, very passionate about this is that we wanted to make sure that the populace had a second to take a look at law. And, while this is not necessarily a representative democracy, we have a lot of people with a lot of knowledge in this kingdom. And, I'm not just a pelican, I have a background in risk management for hospital systems. So we want to make sure that the people that we have in this game bring their expertise both in game and out of game to our law, because almost every person who wrote in during this process of changing law their ideas were amazing and valid and were actually incorporated into this document. So we want to respect the populace, respect their expertise, and really make a good document that everyone has a moment to say, hey, this is great, or hey, have you really thought about this? Let's reflect upon this again. Okay. So our section on laws was just made, a little bit more formalized as to the process so that everybody understands, so it's not secretive. And then we also added in a section on making sure that we do review our laws every 2 years so that we don't have these giant big rewrites that have just piled up and piled up and piled up. Previously, if the Crown didn't want to change anything, even if the Seneschal said, hey, I think we should change this, the Crown didn't have to act. So, unless society gave us a hard stop. And like I said, in this case, society did. Any questions on this process? Okay. Hearing none, I want to move into a little bit into the governing documents of the SCA. Some of the old timers will call it Corpora, but it is the governing documents of the SCA. It includes Corpora, but I want to show you how to find that as well as Seneschal, because it's something that you should know. So under Document Library, up here at the top on sca.org, you'll click on Document Library. This is going to give you everything you need. And here is SCA Organizational Handbook, the governing docs. Okay. So this includes Corpora, bylaws, corporate policies, and the articles of incorporation of the SCA. And this is going to be your main go-to if you don't know the answer to something. If it's not contained in Kingdom Law, it's going to be contained in this document. And what I like about this document is that you can just click on the title and it'll jump you to that section of the document. So it's fantastic. You can also use Control F or Apple Open Key F, and it'll pop up this little search box up here. You see it in the top right corner. And if I'm interested in baronial territory, so it'll just find all words that have baronial in them, and then you can advance by using this caret to the next instance of baronial. So that can be nice if you're looking for something and not quite sure where you should start looking for it. All right. Let's go back to Kingdom Law here. All right. Now, edicts. What are edicts? Edicts are a power given to the Crown established in the governing documents. And an edict is a royal command proclaimed at a royal court at a published event. So in order to be an official event, you have to be published in the Outlandish Herald. The Outlandish Herald has a deadline of about the month before an event. So you always want to make sure that you are keeping in mind your publication dates of the Outlandish Herald to make sure that your event can be included in the proper month. Okay? So an edict may not conflict with federal, state, tribal, or the SCA Board of Directors governing documents of the SCA or Outlands law. So the Crown can't come in and say, we're going to change Section 4 of, we have an edict, we're changing Section 4 of Outlands law. It doesn't work that way. An edict properly issued under this section has the force of Outlands law for the duration of the reign only. So if for some reason tomorrow the Crown says you can only wear green and gold at an event, that is an edict. That could be something that would be in effect for the duration of their reign. Is it a smart thing? Well, no, because not everybody has green and gold garb, but it's the whim of the Crown, and that's what we, that's the game that we play. Edicts must be published in the Kingdom newsletter the month following the court in which they were ordered. Any questions on edicts? Okay. Next, we have the rights, duties, and privileges of the crown. These essentially have not changed since the prior. The only big section of this that changed was moving the royal household to an appendices. The selection of royalty, this essentially has not changed either. The two big highlights were, let's see. Section E have expressed their ability to attend the following coronation as scheduled in Outlands Kingdom law. And that we also, this 5.7, letters shall be submitted to the official kingdom email addresses of the crown and the Kingdom Seneschal before the submission deadline set by the crown. So typically for a crown tourney, the combatants email the crown and need to CC the Kingdom Seneschal. The Kingdom Seneschal makes sure that both participant and consort have current memberships, and have no pending investigations that will go poorly against them. And then that list gets sent to the Earl Marshal, who then will verify the ability, the authorization, and then that goes back to the crown, and the crown gets to use the list to whatever way they choose. Any questions on this section? Okay. Succession of the crown. This one essentially has not been changed. The one big section was what happens if the prince is removed from office. This gives the princess the ability to rule on her own. This was directed by society in direct reflection to what happened in Ansteora, where the prince was removed from society for being inappropriate in his crown with a organization that has branched off from the SCA, who does not hold our values. There's also a section on in case the sovereign and or consort has to leave. And this was just gone into a little bit more detail into the process of what can happen. We had like 2 lines on this in our previous law. Events and tournaments. This section was originally expanded on by Mortigan and Umani with the different rotations for the different events and setting the day for those events. The big section that was updated from previous law for this one, 8.4 is new baronies form, and should an existing barony change status, Outlands law shall be revised. So that allows us more flexibility in the rotation schedule without having to get a variance from society. Go ahead, Carrie.
Now I know I should know where this is and stuff, but for like my deputy and whatnot, where do we find the calendar that has the expected rotation? Because I cannot find that.
I'm so glad you asked. From the Office of the Seneschal page, we're going to scroll down to Kingdom Event Calendar 2025-2026.
That's it?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my gosh. Do we have like 2027 since we're already starting on 2026?
Well, my dear, I am retired, but if Christine would direct me to, I would be happy to put 2027 on here.
Thank you so much for that.
Of course. Yeah. Let me make a note here. Christine, Aldith, is that okay with you guys? Because I have the original document and can make it look pretty.
I have no problem.
Okay, cool. All right. I'd be happy to get that updated. All righty. This update with Kingdom Law also points out the expected event bid process for these events on 8.5. So assigned baronies shall submit a complete event bid no fewer than 6 months prior to the scheduled date of the assigned kingdom event. The bid must follow the kingdom's standard event bid format and meet all society and kingdom financial, administrative, and site requirements. The bid must be submitted prior to the Kingdom Financial Committee meeting, at which the event will be considered at least 6 months prior to the scheduled date of assigned kingdom event. Failure to submit a complete bid by the deadline permits the Kingdom Financial Committee to accept competing bids from other branches. So if your local branch is unable to produce a bid 6 months out from the event, this gives the kingdom the flexibility to say, hey, Barony B, you didn't get it in. We know you're having trouble with it. We know there's stuff going on in your barony. Barony C or Shire C, are you guys able? Do you want to put a bid in? Oh yeah, we've been dying to do this. Okay, great. So that allows us to kind of do some swapping without having to get a variance from society. We also have a trade hosting responsibility with another barony. So if Barony B says, hey, coming all the way up, coming up to Windkeep or, coming all the way north during a snowstorm is a bad idea. Can we swap with somebody who has a little bit better weather for a camping event? Yes, not a problem. We just need to know ahead of time, no fewer than 7 months prior to the date of the scheduled kingdom event. Okay. So this kind of ensures that no barony that's planning an event has the rug pulled out from underneath of them, and that everybody has a heads up as to, what they're able to do, what they're able to commit to, and, being very reasonable and looking at what does my group have the capacity to do right now? And if the answer is not much, but we can plan for later, that's something that we need to be talking to each other with at our monthly meetings. Okay. All right. This also gives 8.8 gives greater officers of state may host kingdom events related to their office, provided the following conditions are met. Go ahead, Caroline.
So when you mentioned swapping events, like if one barony says, we're going to have a snowstorm, etc., is that at the discretion of the kingdom or the barony that they would be swapping?
The two baronies have to both agree.
Cool. That's what I figured. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. And I think it's agree in writing with permission and blah, blah, blah. Give me a sec here.
Gotcha.
Yes. Branches assigned a kingdom event may trade hosting responsibilities with another barony, provided both baronies agree in writing. The agreement is submitted to the Kingdom Seneschal and Kingdom Exchequer no fewer than 6 months prior to the scheduled date of the assigned kingdom event, and the change is properly published. Okay. Alrighty. So 8.8 gives kingdom officers, greater officers of state, events related to their offices, provided that the following conditions are met. So for instance, Stag's Con. Stag's Con wasn't on the kingdom event rotation, mostly because we find that we have better attendance when we put it in the center of the kingdom, rather than at the far north or the far south. And so we wanted to be able to have an event where we had the best the best amount of resources and the best amount of participation. So, for example, Stags Con, falls under the officer's portfolio and it aligns with the purpose of the Kingdom sponsored event. So the greater officer must submit a complete event bid that will be reviewed by the Kingdom Financial Committee at least 3 months prior to the event date. Events can be in person or virtual. Events can be partnered with an official branch, or they may be hosted by the Kingdom. And if they're partnered with a local branch, 50% of the profit split may be voted on by the Kingdom Financial Committee. So typically when you host a Kingdom event, 50% goes to the Kingdom, but this doesn't necessarily need to happen as well. Okay. 8.9, minors under the 15 years old or under will not be charged gate or site fees at Kingdom events. And Outlands branches are encouraged to remove minor fees for 15 years old and under from events when financially reasonable to do so. This was placed by Bardoff and Sabiha because we felt very passionate about including families, and that charging minors to come to an event is burdensome against families, and running the numbers, Sura discovered that it wasn't really making a big difference. I'm going to pause for just a second because my Mac is dying for some juice. I'm going to go off camera for just a moment while I plug this in. Give me a second. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay. All right. And then 8.10, the use of cannons is barred from all events. And then 8.11, drones may only be used at an official event with the express permission of the Kingdom Seneschal and subject to such restrictions they may deem necessary. Somebody flew a drone over the showers at Battlemore. So that's why that rule is there. Alrighty, my friends. Moving on to the rights and duties of the populace. This has not changed greatly, except for smoking, vaping, or the use of similar products is prohibited, except in designated smoking areas. All persons smoking, vaping, or using similar products must comply with site rules and all applicable modern laws. We've got a lot of people who are allergic to cannabis smoke, and that was creating a couple problems. So, all right. Officers and officer requirements. So we have a residency requirement, or you must live inside the kingdom that you serve. And then you must reside within the boundaries of the group that you serve with no exceptions, landed nobility, local seneschal, and local exchequer. Other officers can live outside with permission. So this also codified the reporting requirements. All kingdom officers must submit written quarterly reports to their superiors and to the Crown and Kingdom Seneschal. Failure to report may constitute a cause for review and potential suspension or removal from office in accordance with SCA governing documents and Society Seneschal policy. No automatic dismissal shall occur based solely on one missed report. Okay. The other big change in this document was it also codified the need to use your approved outlands.org email, in addition to having no email forwarding. It also codified into making sure that you are, one, communicating with the Crown, and two, you're turning over your records to your successor within 30 days of leaving office. And then providing those written quarterly reports to their subordinate officers with copies to the Crown and Kingdom Seneschal. Any questions there? We also added a couple lesser officers, including the Thrown Weapons General, and the Dean of the Outlands University, and the Historian. This also goes into very specific duties of each office, and we can cover it. Christine, do you want me to cover this in detail, or just the Seneschal?
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting myself. We went over the deputy or the duties of offices.
Perfect.
Well, you could do that pretty, even pretty broadly.
Yeah. So it is within the Kingdom Seneschal's purview to interpret the kingdom
And
law.
I can't hear you for some reason.
Oh. Can you guys hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you fine.
Okay.
I can't hear you.
Okay. All right. So we interpret kingdom law and advise the crown on such interpretations. If the crown doesn't like that interpretation, they can be reviewed by the Society Seneschal if requested. The Seneschal maintains and publishes the laws of the kingdom. They oversee and recommend incipient branches for advancement to official status. They monitor the official branches and notify the crown and appropriate society officers when branches fall below the required standards. Establish the kingdom calendar with the chronicler and review it prior to publication in each Outlandish Herald. Solicit bids for all official kingdom and inter-kingdom events hosted within the Outlands. And oversee and have final authority over all kingdom events, including Battlemore. They also serve on the financial committee, and then oversee the youth officer and social media officer. Okay. While the Kingdom Seneschal and while the Seneschals of local branches, do receive reports from their partners, the Seneschal is not in charge of everything, right? We work in tandem and partnership, but we are not the boss of anyone except for our social media and our youth who report directly to us. Okay. I'm going to skip over everyone else's jobs. It's important as Seneschals that know what your officers are doing and what they should be doing. But you don't have to manage them. We're all adults, right? So local officers shall maintain a monthly communication with their corresponding kingdom officer using official email methods, i.e. the Outlands email accounts or the Outlands service portal. And as local officers, you'll perform your duties that'll be consistent with society and kingdom policy. Okay. Next, section 1010 is an update. Officer terms, appointment, and succession. All kingdom and local officers shall serve a standard 2-year term from their date of their warrant, unless otherwise specified by society policy, Outlands law, or their society superior. So if there's no one to take over, you can request an extension from your 2-year term. Officers may request reappointment for an additional term. Reappointment is subject to approval by the appropriate kingdom officer and the crown, if required under society warranting procedures, and with consultation with the Kingdom Seneschal for kingdom level officers. No officer shall serve more than 2 consecutive terms in the same office without explicit approval of their kingdom or society superior as appropriate. And term limits may be extended temporarily at the discretion of the crown and kingdom or society superior when continuity is required or no qualified candidates have applied. Any questions about this? Okay. Go ahead.
Let me put it back down again. We had a little bit of a discussion about this earlier when it comes to the smaller groups,
Yes.
where you have officer roulette, where you already filled your 2 terms, so like 4 years all together in the Seneschal, and now you're going to the exchequer for 2 years with a big, and then the 5 of you who are now members are still swapping. That at this point looks like it requires pretty much constant oversight from the kingdom things to be able to keep extending those people in the offices. Is that how that's going to work?
So a local office would be, a 2-year term, right? And if there's still nobody who can step up in 2 years, you can request an extension for additional 2 years, right? It is the preference that you train somebody to take over your position, right? So we either make it easy, and how do we do that, right? That's the whole volunteer discussion. Do we make things, do we make volunteering easier by getting rid of paperwork requirements? Did we just not educate people on, how to, what this office entails and how to be in this position? You know, the society works on this peerage system where we take apprentices, right? And we teach them how to do our job in hopes that someday they will be able to fill our shoes. And I kind of look at that same approach here in these cases where, you may not be ready to step up, but they will be in a year. So let's request appointment for an additional term. Now, in small groups where you're just bouncing offices around, that's fine. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't serve as an officer, for the 10 years that you live there. It just means you can't be seneschal for 10 years. Okay. Go ahead.
I think what she's meaning is like, so we've got the 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of officers, and doing the roulette thing, like, then all of a sudden becoming ANS minister,
Mhm.
and after 2 years, there's nobody willing to take seneschal.
Mhm.
And so, can they go back and do it again, or?
Oh yeah, just because, as long as you take a break, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just not the
It doesn't mean you can only be seneschal for 2 years and that's it, and you can never be seneschal again.
Well, for
For 4 years, yeah.
4 years, okay.
Yeah, the intent is to make sure that we are getting new ideas into the officer corps,
Cool.
not to put a burden on the groups. Okay.
Okay.
And so if you serve for 4 years and then you take a break as Kingdom ANS or as ANS minister for 2 years, and then you want to go back to seneschal, that's completely allowed under 1010. And I wish I had known that earlier. We would have changed it and made it more clear. I apologize. Okay. We also have a required notice of intent to step down, because sometimes things happen, right? But we want to prevent an instance where people get mad and say, I quit, and just walk away, right? We want to do it in a manner that, hey, this is getting too much for me. I can't do it anymore. Here's my 3-month notice of my intent to step down. Let me train somebody up in this process, right? We want to also make sure that we're advertising our vacant offices. We want to publicly announce. We want to make sure it appears locally, either on Discord or your local newsletter or the populist meeting announcement. And then we want to make sure that we're putting out a call of it letters for intent so that we are transparent for who's taking over. And it's not just, oh yeah, this is my best friend, she's going to take over this office for me, kind of thing. We want to make sure we give everybody the opportunity to volunteer. Anyone have any questions about that? Okay. Alrighty. So we also have a section here for emergency transitions in case this must happen. So the emergency appointment shall not exceed 4 months without a posted call of letters for intent. Right. Next, we have our section for landed nobility. The biggest one here is that landed nobility need to make sure that they're using their Outlands provided emails and not personal emails. Alrighty. Appendix 1, Grievances, Conduct, and Behavioral Expectations. Most of this is taken directly from our society governing documents. There's been a lot of chatter on, am I under the investigation by the bod, and am I under investigation, and am I going to get in trouble, and can the crown just banish me on a whim? And we have a lot of people who like to they get worked up about this, and they're very uncomfortable, and so we wanted to make sure that this process was as transparent as possible. I will say that if you are under investigation from the society, you will receive a letter in the mail. It is a certified letter that will say something along the lines of, you are the subject of an investigation and expect to be contacted by a society appointed investigator. This doesn't always occur for the local kingdom. You don't always get a letter in the mail, but if anything is going to be enacted upon an investigation, they will receive a letter in the mail. And this is spelled out in the Seneschal's, under the Seneschal handbook. Let me show you how to get that. So we're back at SCA.org, document library. Here's our policies regarding conduct and behavior in the SCA. And then a little bit further down, under the Office of the Seneschal, is going to be the sanctions manual. And that's going to give you everything that you need to know about sanctions and things in the SCA when things go wrong. But I know you guys have a class on that, so I don't want to focus on that right now. Okay, Kingdom Authority for Conduct Events. The Kingdom Seneschal retains the authority to direct individuals to cease disruptive or unsafe behavior, remove individuals from a site for safety or legal concerns, halt activities that violate society or kingdom policy, close activities or areas to ensure safety, delegate these authorities to a deputy or branch seneschal for events the Kingdom Seneschal does not attend. Removal from site is not a sanction, but an event management action governed by society policy and modern law. Okay? And this just kind of gives a little bit more. I know some people can be hesitant at times to say, oh, so-and-so is playing with fire and they're not being very safe, but we don't want to say anything to them. Or do we have authority to tell them to stop? And as a seneschal, yes, you do. If they're posing a safety hazard, if it violates site rules, if their conduct disrupts the event, and if their continued presence constitutes a liability risk. So any removal from site must be documented, must be reported to the Kingdom Seneschal, and is not a disciplinary action under the society sanction system. Okay? No statements implying a ban or sanction of individuals removed from site shall be made. So we don't use it as a, you're going to get a banishment. It's just your current actions are very unsafe to our group. We have to remove you from site. I expect you off site in X number of minutes or at X time. Okay. There's some other officer expectations covered here with professionalism, impartiality, and adherence to society and kingdom policies. And then a grievance and concern section. So participants who have concerns regarding behavior, safety, officer conduct, or procedural fairness should, report concerns to the event staff, report to the local seneschal, and report to the Kingdom Seneschal where appropriate. I would expect, and I'm sure Christine and Aldith will say the same thing, that if you have to remove somebody from an event, you had better CC the Kingdom Seneschal on that one. Because the last thing that anyone wants is to be blindsided by someone saying, oh, so-and-so doesn't like me, so they threw me out of an event. Wait, what? No surprises, ever, okay? And then, of course, instances where modern law enforcement was required to intervene during an event, such as, you know, you've got a serious safety violation, you've got Uncle Touchy deciding to touch a minor, that's an immediate phone call to the police. If we've got discriminatory behavior, anything involving minors, any sexual misconduct, any situation that that might require that might lead to a possible sanction. All right. Now, only the Society Seneschal and board directors can issue these sanctions, except sanctions that can be issued by the Crown that is spelled out in the SCA governing documents. But that also includes suspension of participation, revocation and denial of membership, and removal from society-wide office. The Crown and Kingdom Seneschal might jointly issue a temporary removal from participation, which is read into court and must be filed within 30 days and mailed to the person of interest. We also have Kingdom legal compliance. Kingdom law may not contradict society level policies or create alternative disciplinary systems. So the system that we use is going to be the system that society uses, period. And anytime there's conflict between society policy and kingdom law, society policy and governing documents shall prevail. Any questions? Cool. Appendix 2 covers the different types of branches in the Outlands, including the hamlet requirement. And this also goes into a little bit of detail about cantons. So groups that are maybe a shire and instead have decided to become part of a barony for extra support. And so they go from being a shire to a canton to reporting up through the barony instead of reporting directly to the Crown. We also wanted to spell out a little bit about incipient branches on how to create a branch. And then also the hamlet, which is an experimental branch status. That is an experiment that is running from 2025 through 2027 society-wide. Hamlets are a way to maintain your group's heraldry, but not have any officer requirements, which is good for groups that are tired, that need to take a break, but still want to be playing SCA and don't want to close. And then there's a section on how to rebuild that hamlet to a full branch status. All right. Appendix 2 covers the Kingdom event and bid procedures. If your event stewards are unsure, all of this is also located on the Seneschal website. We've got our Kingdom event proposal form right here. And so that appendices kind of goes through this process. And I know we're going to be talking about the event portal here later on this afternoon. But does anybody have any questions right now? So if you have somebody who's a new event steward, or just for your own references, I would print out this appendices and just make sure that we're following the process. This kind of spells it out quite a bit. And that's also why we have a Kingdom event deputy, Master Jeffrey, to help walk you through this process as well. So if you have an event steward who needs assistance, email him and he can help assist in that whole process. Okay. All right. Site requirements for Kingdom events. Just things to keep in mind. Appendix 5 is the charter of the Outlands University. This is something that was very near and dear to Her Grace Aria's heart, and so she wanted to make sure that we spelled out the charter of the Outlands University here in Kingdom Law. And then our final appendix is just the royal household and ceremonial champions. This was a direct reschedule. This was just a direct copy from section 2 of the previous Kingdom Law. It just dropped into its own appendices because they're not actually officers. They're just royal appointees. Okay. And that is the very dry topic of Kingdom Law in, what, 30 minutes? 45 minutes.
Really well done.
All right. Does anyone have any questions, any concerns, any like, why did they do that? Or, how did they do that questions for me?
Well, maybe if we stop recording, folks will feel more willing to talk. So, Bati, do you mind turning the recording off?
So just to wrap up, this was Kingdom Law class. We are ending early since this was scheduled to go to 11:45 before the lunch break. We will return later. Thank you for participating.